What do you mean you don't have the keys? My voice was a thin, reedy sound, barely recognizable to my own ears. The house is empty. That can't be right, I insisted, my knuckles bone. White as my fingers tightened around my phone, threatening to crack the screen. The heat of the Bakersfield afternoon pressed down on me, heavy and suffocating, yet a chill snaked through me, a premonition of the unraveling to come. Across the street, old Mr. Henderson, the neighbor with the perpetually pruned rose bushes, paused his watering, his gaze fixed on me from his porch. He watched, unblinking, as I paced back and forth, a distraught figure caught in the harsh glare of the Californian sun, in front of what used to be my home. My name is Jasmine Rojas, and just hours before, I had completed the 4-hour drive from my university. The air conditioning in my old Honda wheezing a protest the entire way. It was supposed to be spring break, a brief respite from the relentless grind of pre-law studies, a return to the familiar comfort of childhood. Instead, I had arrived to find my childhood home, a modest bungalow painted a faded salmon pink, defaced by a stark for sale sign hammered unapologetically into the front lawn. The windows, usually adorned with my mother's cheerful floral curtains, were now bare, vacant, like eyes that had witnessed too much and withdrawn. No furniture was visible through the dust-streaked panes, only the hollow echo of absence. 3 black garbage bags, bulging with unknown contents, sat on the porch, resembling unwanted, forgotten guests. A wave of nausea washed over me. Hesitantly, I approached the porch, my shoes crunching on fallen jacaranda blossoms. With a trembling hand, I peeked inside one of the bags. My breath hitched. There they were. My worn-out college textbooks, winter clothes I'd left behind during the hurried transition to warmer climes, a half-written journal, and a broken picture frame. The photo inside, though cracked, still showed my family at the beach 3 summers ago. My mother, my father, my younger brother Gabriel, and me. Everyone was smiling, faces bright with a seemingly genuine happiness that now felt like a cruel deception. Everyone, I thought, a liar. Your father said you should have called first, my Uncle Thomas said, his voice hesitant, laced with an uncomfortable pity that pricked at my already raw nerves. He was on the other end of the line, his words echoing the vast distance that suddenly stretched between us. They moved last week. Didn't they tell you? No, I managed. The word a mere whisper, barely escaping the thick, suffocating lump that had formed in my throat, threatening to choke off all sound. They didn't tell me anything. The line went dead as I abruptly hung up, unable to bear the well-meaning but ultimately useless sympathy. My thumb hovered over my father's contact, my mind reeling. What was happening? Why had no one told me? This couldn't be real. This had to be some elaborate, cruel prank. I ready-eyed, each ring vibrating through my hand, resonating deep within my chest like the tolling of a funeral bell. Each ring felt like an eternity, stretching time into an agonizing crawl. Finally, a click. Hello, his voice, flat, emotionless, a stranger's voice. Dad? My own voice cracked, betraying the desperate tremor that gripped me. The house is empty. There are garbage bags with my stuff on the porch. What's going on? A pause. A heavy, pregnant silence that spoke volumes of evasion and dismissal. Then, his words, clipped and devoid of warmth. We moved. You're an adult now, deal with it. The line went dead again, this time with a definitive click, severing the last fragile thread of connection. I stared at my phone, stunned, the device feeling alien and heavy in my hand. My vision blurred. I called back, straight to voicemail. I tried my mother's phone. The same, my younger brother Gabriel's phone. No answer. Just like that, in the span of a few excruciating minutes, I had been erased from their lives. No warning. No goodbye. Not even the basic courtesy of a forwarding address. It was as if I had ceased to exist, a forgotten chapter in a book they had decided to simply discard. I stood there, rooted to the spot, watching the setting sun paint the sky in hues of orange and purple, casting long, distorted shadows across what used to be my front yard. The familiar silhouette of the maple tree, its branches reaching like skeletal fingers towards the darkening sky, remained tall and resolute. My father and I had planted it together when I was 8, our hands sticky with mud, our laughter echoing in the warm afternoon air. Now, it stood as a silent monument to a past that no longer belonged to me, its roots anchored to a house that no longer belonged to us. A bitter irony twisted in my gut. Every month, without fail, I had sent part of my meager scholarship money home, a quiet act of gratitude and solidarity. I had maintained a stellar 3.9 GPA in my demanding pre-law program, all while working a part-time job to cover my own expenses. I had been the responsible one, the quiet one, the one who never caused trouble, the one who always strove to make them proud. And this inexplicable, brutal abandonment was my reward. The tears didn't come, not then. My eyes burned, but the emotion was too vast, too overwhelming to be contained by mere tears. Instead, a cold, hard resolve began to crystallize within me. I bent down, a mechanical action, and picked up those heavy garbage bags, one by one, loading them into the cramped back seat of my Honda. The physical effort was a welcome distraction from the searing emotional pain. That night, I checked into a cheap motel on the outskirts of Bakersfield, the kind with flickering neon signs and the faint, unsettling smell of stale cigarette smoke and bleach. I laid out my salvaged possessions on the scratchy, faded bedspread, a pathetic collection of what remained of my life, a few textbooks, a handful of winter clothes I'd forgotten to pack, that broken picture frame. I traced the crack across my family's smiling faces, a visual metaphor for the fissure that had just ripped through my world. Everyone's smiling, everyone a liar. In the sterile quiet of that motel room, illuminated by the dim glow of the bedside lamp, I made a decision. It was a vow whispered into the stillness, a promise to myself born of profound hurt and fierce determination. If they wanted to erase me, to discard me as if I were nothing more than refuse, then I would return the favor. I would sever all ties, completely and irrevocably. And I would build something new, something formidable, something they could never, ever take away from me. I had grown up in a household where the word, family, was imbued with almost sacred meaning, a synonym for unconditional support, an unbreakable bond forged in shared sacrifice. My parents had immigrated from Mexico before I was born, leaving behind everything familiar for the promise of a better life. In our small, tightly knit family, family first wasn't just a saying. It was practically our household religion, an unwritten commandment etched into our daily existence. My father, a man of quiet strength and immense pride, worked punishing double shifts at the manufacturing plant, his hands often bruised and calloused. My mother, resilient and tireless, cleaned houses, her days long and arduous. They reminded us, often over dinner, of the sacrifices they had made, the immense journey they had undertaken. "We came here with nothing," my father would say, his voice low and firm, his gaze sweeping over my brother and me. "So you could have everything. Education is your ticket." I absorbed those words like a sponge. While other kids in my high school class went to parties on Friday nights, I studied, my textbooks spread open on the kitchen table, the low hum of the refrigerator my constant companion. When my friends gleefully recounted tales of their summer jobs at the mall, I interned at the local courthouse, fetching coffee and organizing files, keenly observing the mechanics of justice. My acceptance to a prestigious university, coupled with a pre-law scholarship that covered almost everything, was supposed to be the first significant return on their immense investment, a testament to their sacrifices, a validation of their unwavering belief in the power of education. My younger brother, Gabriel, was different. Where I was studious and disciplined, he was impulsive and free-spirited. He struggled in school, preferring the vibrant, immersive worlds of video games to the dry pages of textbooks. He had been caught shoplifting twice, minor offenses that nonetheless sent ripples of worry through our parents. Yet, when it came to Gabriel, their response was invariably one of gentle understanding, of unwavering defense. They never threatened to kick him out. They never withheld affection or support. He's finding his way, they'd say with a soft sigh, a gentle smile, their eyes full of a patience they rarely extended to me. Perhaps that stark contrast, that glaring disparity in their treatment, was precisely why their abandonment blindsided me with such force. The responsible daughter, the dutiful one, discarded without a second thought, while the troubled son remained nestled securely under their protective wing. The injustice of it was a bitter, searing pain. That desolate night in the motel, desperate for guidance, I reached out to the only person I could think of who possessed both profound intellect and genuine compassion. Professor Wilkins, my constitutional law instructor. She had, over the course of the semester, become something of a mentor, her sharp mind and empathetic nature a beacon in the often cold landscape of academia. They just left, she asked, disbelief palpable in her voice, a gentle echo of my own shock. Her voice, usually so composed and measured, held a note of genuine concern. Yes, I confirmed, the word catching in my throat. I'm not sure what to do next. I can't exactly go back to the dorms during break and My voice cracked then, a dam breaking, the carefully constructed wall of composure crumbling under the weight of unleashed emotion. The tears, long held at bay, finally welled up, blurring my vision. Listen to me, Jasmine, Professor Wilkins said, her tone firm yet incredibly gentle. Come stay with me until the dorms reopen. We'll figure this out together. Professor Wilkins lived alone in a grand, sprawling Victorian house, nestled among ancient oak trees, its rooms filled to the brim with towering bookshelves overflowing with volumes of law, history, and philosophy. Two elderly, stately cats, named Magna and Carta, presided over the quiet domain with an air of regal indifference. She gave me the guest room, a sanctuary of antique furniture and soft light, and a key, a tangible symbol of trust and belonging. No time limit, she said, her eyes warm and reassuring. Focus on your studies. Your strength is your mind. That spring break, instead of succumbing to despair, I channeled my burgeoning anger and sorrow into relentless research. Professor Wilkins, ever the pragmatist, had swiftly connected me with a summer legal internship at Riverton Law Partners, a firm renowned for specializing in complex housing discrimination cases. The irony was not lost on me. It resonated deeply, a painful echo of my own displacement. Channel it, Jasmine. Professor Wilkins advised one evening over a steaming cup of Earl Grey tea, her words both counsel and comfort. The best advocacy, the most powerful and authentic kind, often springs from personal experience. Use your pain to fuel your purpose. I nodded slowly, the truth of her words sinking in. My mind drifted to the family photos I'd found crumpled at the bottom of one of those garbage bags, a vibrant shot from my Quincine era. My awkward high school graduation photo, all the milestones my parents had celebrated with such public fanfare, only to discard the evidence like so much trash. The memory sharpened my resolve. That night, with a heavy heart but a clear purpose, I blocked their numbers. All of them. My father, my mother, my brother, even the aunts and uncles who might, however unwittingly, enable their behavior or serve as their messengers. If anyone, any curious classmate or sympathetic friend, asked about my family, I simply stated, my voice calm and unwavering, we're not in touch. No dramatic story. No plea for sympathy. No dwelling on the past. I was rebuilding from scratch, brick by agonizing brick, and sentimentality, the dangerous pull of what once was, had no place in the foundation of my new life. The summer internship at Riverton Law Partners proved to be a transformative experience, far exceeding my expectations. What began as mundane tasks, basic legal research, meticulously organizing case files, and running countless coffee errands quickly evolved. My supervisor, attorney Eleanor Grayson, a formidable woman with a sharp intellect and an even sharper wit, soon discovered my unexpected knack for connecting with clients. "You have something rare, Jasmine," she told me one afternoon, her gaze piercing yet kind, after I had spent an hour calming a young, terrified mother who was facing imminent eviction, her voice filled with quiet despair. "You actually listen, truly listen." Impressed by my ability to forge a bond of trust and understanding, Eleanor assigned me to assist with intake interviews, a crucial first step in any legal process. I met families on the brink, being systematically pushed out of their affordable housing by aggressive developers. I sat across from elderly tenants facing predatory, illegal rent increases, their lives uprooted by greed. I listened to the harrowing tales of students dealing with exploitative landlords, their dreams of education overshadowed by the constant threat of homelessness. Their stories resonated with me on a profound, visceral level, in ways I couldn't fully articulate, but understood deep in my bones. Their struggles mirrored my own, albeit on a larger, systemic scale. One particularly grueling evening, after hours spent interviewing 3 families from the same apartment complex, all served simultaneous, seemingly coordinated eviction notices, I stayed late, long after the office had emptied, meticulously organizing case notes. The overhead lights hummed softly, casting long shadows across my desk, which was buried under a mountain of paperwork. Eleanor found me there at 9 p.m., still surrounded by scattered documents, a half-empty coffee mug beside me, burning the midnight oil. "I see," she remarked, her voice a warm counterpoint to the quiet office, as she leaned casually against the door frame, observing my focused intensity. "These families," I said, looking up, my voice heavy with a mix of exhaustion and indignation. "They have nowhere to go. The developers are offering them a paltry 2 weeks, in a motel as compensation for breaking their leases early." 2 weeks, Eleanor. Eleanor sighed, a sound of wary resignation. "Unfortunately, Jasmine, that's often more than the law explicitly requires in these kinds of expedited, developer-driven buyouts." "But it's not right," I insisted, a surge of righteous anger coursing through me. 2 weeks isn't enough time to find new housing, not with security deposits, first month's rent, and the current state of the rental market. These people will end up homeless. The system is fundamentally broken." Eleanor nodded, her expression grim. "I agree." "So," she paused, her eyes meeting mine, a challenge in their depths. "What are you going to do about it?" That question lingered with me for days, a persistent echo in my mind. What could I, a mere second-year pre-law student with a summer internship, possibly do to address such a monumental injustice? The answer, when it finally arrived, came unexpectedly, almost serendipitously, during a mandatory university financial aid seminar. The presenter, a dry but informative speaker, mentioned in passing that students could apply for social innovation grants, seed money specifically designed for projects addressing pressing community needs. The application deadline, she noted, was just 2 weeks away. A spark ignited within me. An idea, nascent but powerful, began to take shape. I stayed up 3 nights straight, fueled by instant coffee and an unyielding sense of purpose, drafting a detailed proposal for a housing advocacy program. My vision was clear. It would specifically target vulnerable students and low-income families facing housing insecurity. I named it the Safe Space Initiative. Eleanor, with her practical legal expertise, helped me refine the intricate legal aspects of the program, ensuring its viability and impact. Professor Wilkins, ever the meticulous academic, reviewed the final application, providing invaluable feedback on its clarity and persuasiveness. While I anxiously awaited a response regarding the grant, the first of many calls from my parents began to trickle in. It came approximately 6 months after they had so abruptly abandoned me, a cold, clinical voicemail from my father. "Jasmine." His voice, rough around the edges, echoed with an unfamiliar strain. Your mother is worried about you. Call us. No apology. No explanation for their actions. Just an unstated expectation that I would respond to their summons like an obedient daughter, instantly falling back into the old, familiar patterns. I didn't call back. 3 days later, another voicemail. This one from my mother, her tone a brittle mix of hurt and accusation. This silent treatment is childish, Jasmine. We're your family. I saved the message, a grim memento, but still didn't respond. The calls increased in frequency, a relentless barrage of missed connections. Sometimes my father, sometimes my mother, occasionally Gabriel's voice, tentative and unsure. Their tones ranged from demanding to pleading, from hurt to subtly manipulative. Yet, none of them, not a single one, acknowledged what they had done. There was no apology, no attempt at explanation, only the insistent demand for a reconnection on their terms. When the university finally notified me that I had been awarded the Social Innovation Grant, a staggering, 25,000, to launch the Safe Space Initiative, I didn't share the news with them. I didn't even consider it. When Riverton Law Partners offered me a paid position to continue my work through the academic year, allowing me to transform my internship into a legitimate career stepping stone, I celebrated not with my biological family, but with Professor Wilkins and Eleanor Grayson. My new family, a chosen family forged in shared purpose and genuine affection, was slowly but surely forming around me. These were people who supported me not out of obligation or ingrained familial duty, but out of genuine respect for my abilities and a deep, unwavering care for my well-being. By January, the Safe Space Initiative was no longer just an idea. It was a burgeoning reality. We had already assisted 23 students in fighting wrongful evictions, securing their housing and their futures. We operated out of a converted storage room at Riverton Law Partners, a small but efficient space that had been transformed into a bustling hub of activity. Our team consisted of 2 dedicated volunteer paralegals and a rotating schedule of law students eager to earn their clinical hours and contribute to a meaningful cause. During the following months, my life became a whirlwind of activity. I rushed from classes to the office, spending my evenings reviewing complex cases, drafting legal letters, and refining our strategic approach. The work was exhausting, consuming every spare moment of my time and energy, but it was profoundly fulfilling. Each family that maintained their housing, each student who avoided the terrifying prospect of homelessness, felt like a personal victory, a small but significant triumph against a seemingly insurmountable system. I was building something meaningful, something tangible and impactful, from the wreckage of my own displacement, transforming my pain into power. My parents, meanwhile, had intensified their campaign to reconnect. The frequency of their calls escalated, sometimes multiple times a day, their voicemails a confusing mix of accusations and thinly veiled pleas. When I continued to ignore them, they enlisted relatives, leveraging the unspoken codes of family loyalty. Your mother cries every night. Jasmine? My Aunt Lucia texted, her message arriving late one evening, a stark white rectangle against the darkness of my phone screen. Whatever they did, can't you forgive them? I didn't respond to these messages either. Forgiveness, I had come to understand, required acknowledgement, a genuine admission of wrongdoing, and they had yet to offer anything resembling either. One particularly busy Tuesday afternoon in February, I was counseling a sophomore named Devon. He had returned from winter break to find his landlord had illegally rented his room to someone else, despite his lease being fully paid up. As we discussed his limited but viable options, formulating a plan to reclaim his rightful housing, the office phone rang, its shrill sound cutting through the quiet intensity of our conversation. Safe Space Initiative, this is Jasmine. I answered, my voice professional and calm, gesturing apologetically to Devon as I covered the mouthpiece. Jasmine, is that you? It was my mother's voice, thin and reedy yet unmistakable. My stomach dropped, a cold, hard knot forming in my gut. "How did you get this number?" I demanded, my tone sharper than I intended. "It's on your website," she said, her voice laced with a strange blend of defensiveness and triumph. "Why haven't you returned our calls? We've been worried sick." Devin shifted uncomfortably in his chair, his eyes darting between me and the phone. My personal life was bleeding into my professional one, and I felt a surge of professional embarrassment. "I'm sorry, Devin," I said, uncovering the mouthpiece briefly. "I need to handle this. Would you mind waiting outside for a moment?" He nodded, understanding dawning in his eyes, and quietly exited the room. Once the door clicked shut, I uncovered the phone. "This is my workplace," I said, my voice low and firm, each word carefully enunciated. "Please don't call here again. Respect my professional boundaries." "Where are your parents?" My mother insisted, her voice breaking, a hint of desperation creeping in. "We have the right." "You lost that right," I interrupted, my voice unwavering, cutting through her fragile plea. "When you put my belongings in garbage bags and sold our house without telling me, you forfeited any claim to that right. I'm not doing this now." "Your father made a mistake," she pleaded, the words tumbling out in a rush, a sudden torrent of excuses. "We had financial troubles, Jasmine. The house was being foreclosed on. We were so embarrassed. We didn't know what else to do." For a fleeting moment, a tiny, almost imperceptible crack appeared in my carefully constructed resolve. Financial troubles, foreclosure. They had never, not once, mentioned money problems to me. They had maintained an image of stoic strength, even when I offered financial support. "If you were in trouble," I said, my voice softer than I intended, the anger momentarily overshadowed by a nascent pang of concern, "you could have told me. I would have helped. I was already sending money home." "Your father wouldn't allow it," she said, her voice tinged with a familiar wariness. "His pride, Jasmine. You know how he is." I did know. My father's pride was a formidable force of nature, a towering, unyielding presence that had shaped our family dynamic since my earliest memories. It was a double-edged sword, inspiring his tireless work ethic, but also blinding him to vulnerability. But pride, I quickly reminded myself, did not justify their actions. It did not excuse their abandonment. "I need to get back to work," I said, my voice firm once more, the brief moment of wavering extinguished. "Please respect my boundaries." I hung up before she could respond, my hand trembling slightly as I carefully placed the receiver back in its cradle. The brief, unexpected conversation had unearthed a complicated mix of feelings I thought I'd successfully buried. Anger, certainly, a familiar, burning resentment, but also a lingering sense of responsibility toward them, a residual echo of the dutiful daughter I once was. Later that evening, Eleanor found me still at my desk, long after the other lights had been dimmed, staring blankly at Safe Spaces call log, the recent entry from my mother a stark reminder of the earlier encounter. "Everything okay?" she asked, her voice gentle, perceptive. She perched casually on the edge of my desk, her presence a comforting anchor in the quiet office. "You seemed distracted." I hesitated. Then, feeling an overwhelming need to confide, I told her about the call, about my mother's desperate explanation, about the sudden revelation of financial duress. Part of me wants to believe they had a good reason. I admitted, my voice barely above a whisper, laying bare my lingering vulnerability. That it wasn't just pure cruelty. Eleanor considered this, her gaze thoughtful. "People rarely act from pure, unadulterated cruelty, Jasmine," she said, "but reasons and excuses aren't the same thing. Whatever financial troubles they had, they chose to handle it by abandoning you without warning. That was their choice, their solution." She was right, of course. Her logic was unassailable, cold and clear as crystal. And yet, my mother's explanation had planted a tiny, insidious seed of doubt. What if there was more to the story? What if they had been truly desperate? cornered by circumstances I couldn't possibly fathom. The next day, against my better judgment, against every fiber of my being that had resisted the urge for months, I did something I knew would either bring clarity or shatter me completely. I searched for my family online. What I found shattered any emerging sympathy, pulverizing it into fine dust. A cheerful Facebook post from my mother, dated just 3 weeks after they'd moved out of our home, depicted her, my father, and Gabriel, all beaming, smiling broadly in front of a new house, its paint fresh and vibrant, a lush green lawn stretching before them. The caption read, "New beginnings, so blessed." There had been no financial crisis, not in the way she implied. There had been no foreclosure. There had just been a decision. A calculated, deliberate choice. A decision to leave me behind. The unanswered calls accumulated like falling snow, each missed connection a testament to their persistence and my unwavering resolve. 150. Then 200. My parents' voicemails evolved, subtly but perceptibly. From demanding and accusatory, they shifted to pleading, then, most disturbingly, to casual updates about their new lives, as if we were engaged in a normal, ongoing conversation instead of a one-sided bombardment. Gabriel got accepted to community college. My mother reported in a voicemail left in late March, her voice brimming with maternal pride. "He's studying computer programming. You always said he was smart." The neighbors brought us tamales. My father announced gruffly in April, his voice a surprising echo of his old self. "Not as good as your mother's, but they're trying to be welcoming." These casual updates, devoid of any acknowledgement of our fractured relationship, infuriated me more than their earlier demands. They were living their lives, forming new community connections, celebrating mundane milestones, all while I was still processing the raw, debilitating trauma of their abandonment, still painstakingly rebuilding my entire existence from the ground up. Meanwhile, the Safe Space Initiative was gaining significant attention. A local news station, impressed by our innovative approach, ran a feature on our work. Interviewing several grateful students, we'd helped navigate the complexities of landlord-tenant disputes. The university newspaper followed with an in-depth profile, highlighting my unique approach to housing justice and commending the program's immediate impact. These small spotlights, though welcome, increased our caseload dramatically. "We need more resources, Eleanor," I said one afternoon, gesturing around our cramped office, which was overflowing with intake folders and stacks of legal documents. "More volunteers, more space, more funding. We're maxed out." "I might have a solution," she replied, her eyes twinkling with a familiar glint of strategic thinking. "The Watkins Foundation is currently accepting proposals for their annual social justice grants. The award is substantial, Jasmine, enough to hire full-time staff, rent proper offices, and truly expand our reach." The application process was grueling, a relentless test of my endurance and focus. I spent weeks, working late into the night, drafting and redrafting our proposal, meticulously crafting every sentence. I gathered compelling testimonials from clients whose lives we had profoundly impacted, and compiled reams of data on housing insecurity among students and low-income families. The final document ran to an astonishing 47 pages, detailing Safe Space's mission, its innovative methodology, and its measurable impacts on the community. 2 days after the submission, my phone rang. The number was unfamiliar, yet the area code, my hometown's area code, sent a jolt of apprehension through me. "Hello," I answered cautiously, bracing myself for another unwanted call from my past. "Jasmine, it's Mrs. Hernandez from next door." The voice on the other end said, instantly recognizable. Our former neighbor. I hadn't spoken to her since that harrowing day I'd found the house empty. "I hope it's okay that I called," she continued, her voice gentle, slightly apologetic. "Your brother Gabriel gave me your number. He said you might not answer if you saw their names on caller ID." My defenses rose immediately, a familiar wall of caution snapping into place. If this is about reconnecting with my parents, Mrs. Hernandez. No, no, she interrupted quickly, her tone earnest. Well, not directly. It's about the house. Your old house. Someone broke in last night. The police think they were looking for valuables. But of course the place is empty. Your father asked me to check, if perhaps you had come back for something. He didn't want to report a break, and if it was just you. I nearly laughed, a sharp, humorless sound that caught in my throat. The absurdity of it was breathtaking. I haven't been back since that day, Mrs. Hernandez, I said, my voice flat. Besides, I don't have keys anymore. They changed the locks, I assume. That's what I told him. She sighed, a hint of exasperation in her voice. But there's something else. The intruder left something behind. An envelope with your name on it. The police gave it to me since I'm watching the property for your father. My heart skipped a beat. A sudden, frantic flutter against my ribs. An envelope with my name. What does it say? I asked, my voice tight with a sudden, inexplicable urgency. I haven't opened it, she said, her voice hesitant. It's addressed to you, but it looks official. There's a law firm's name on it. Official mail at my old address. No one should be sending me legal documents there. I had updated my address with the university, the post office, and all official bodies months ago. A cold dread seeped into my veins. Could it be a summons? Some kind of legal action initiated by my parents? Can you open it? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Just tell me what it says. I heard the faint rustle of paper tearing, then a prolonged silence on the line. Mrs. Hernandez, I prompted, my anxiety mounting. It's about your grandmother's estate, she finally said, her voice slow, as if she were reading each word carefully. Your maternal grandmother in Mexico. My grandmother. She had died when I was 13. I barely remembered her, only fleeting images of a kind face, a gentle touch. What could possibly be about her estate? She had lived a simple, humble life in a small village. It says you've inherited property in Oaxaca. Mrs. Hernandez read slowly, carefully articulating each word. And there's a bank statement. Jasmine, it shows a balance of over $400,000. My mind reeled, a dizzying swirl of disbelief and shock. That can't be right, I murmured, clutching the phone tighter. My grandmother lived simply. She didn't have that kind of money. The letter says the property was developed after her death. Mrs. Hernandez continued, her voice still measured, though a hint of wonder had crept into it. Resort condominiums. Your portion is the proceeds from the sale of 2 units. I grabbed a pen, my hand shaking uncontrollably, and scribbled furiously on the back of an old receipt, as Mrs. Hernandez dictated the Mexican law firm's contact information. My hand trembled as I processed the staggering implications. $400,000. From my grandmother. Does it say when this inheritance became available? I managed to ask, my voice strained. Mrs. Hernandez paused, the sound of shuffling papers loud in my ear. Yes, she confirmed. It was finalized last March. 1 month before my parents had abandoned me. The timing couldn't be a coincidence. They had known. They had known about this substantial inheritance, and they had still left me behind. The betrayal was a fresh wound, deeper and more insidious than before. The Watkins Foundation called, while I was still trying to process the inheritance bombshell. We had been selected as finalists for their prestigious grant and needed to prepare a formal presentation for their board. Under normal circumstances, this news would have been cause for immense celebration, a monumental leap forward for Safe Space Initiative. The Foundation's backing would transform us from a scrappy student-led project into a legitimate, well-funded non-profit. But I was distracted, my mind continually circling back to my grandmother's unexpected legacy, the chilling implications of its timing. After a brief, intense consultation with Eleanor, I contacted the Mexican law firm handling the estate. They confirmed everything. The inheritance was legitimate. The money was indeed mine, and most tellingly, notification had been sent to my parents as my legal guardians over a year ago, when I was still 19. They kept this from me. I told Professor Wilkins during one of our regular dinners, the words thick with a renewed bitterness. They knew I had this inheritance coming, and still put my stuff in garbage bags. They chose to abandon me. She set down her fork, her gaze steady, compassionate. Have you considered why, Jasmine? Money, I said bitterly, the word a poison on my tongue. They probably thought they deserved it more than I did, or that they could manage it better for me. Perhaps, she conceded, though her brow furrowed slightly. But hiding an inheritance of that magnitude is difficult. You would have found out eventually. Maybe they were planning to tell you on their terms, to control the narrative, to make you grateful, dependent on their generosity. When they finally revealed it, I pushed my plate away, my appetite completely gone. Or maybe they never planned to tell me at all. The thought solidified in my mind, a dark, chilling certainty. The inheritance funds were transferred to my account 3 days before the Watkins Foundation presentation. I hadn't decided what to do with the substantial sum, but its presence in my account offered a strange, unprecedented sense of security, a profound feeling of self-sufficiency. For the first time since that devastating day, I found my childhood home empty. I felt truly financially untethered from my past, from any dependency on those who had abandoned me. The Watkins presentation was scheduled for a Saturday afternoon in May. I arrived at the foundation's sleek, modern downtown offices an hour early, needing the extra time to calm my nerves and review my notes one last time in the elegantly furnished waiting area. Our proposal requested a significant $300,000 over 3 years, a sum designed to allow safe space to expand its services beyond the university campus to the broader community, reaching even more vulnerable families. Eleanor arrived 20 minutes before our scheduled time, as impeccable and composed as ever in a tailored charcoal suit, her presence radiating quiet confidence. "Ready?" she asked, a small, encouraging smile gracing her lips as she sat beside me. "As I'll ever be," I replied, smoothing down the lapels of my own carefully. Selected blazer navy blue, professional but not intimidating. "The board can seem formal," she warned, her voice low, "but they care about impact. Focus on the human stories, Jasmine. How safe space genuinely changes lives. They need to see the tangible good we do." We were escorted into a spacious, impeccably appointed boardroom where 8 individuals sat around a massive, polished mahogany table. I recognized several of them from my extensive research. Prominent local business leaders, influential philanthropists, even a formidable former judge. The foundation's director, William Watkins himself, a distinguished man with an air of benevolent authority, rose to greet us. "Rojas, Ms. Grayson, welcome," he said, his voice warm and inviting, gesturing towards the presentation area. "We've been very impressed by your written proposal. Now, please, show us why Safe Space deserves our support." I connected my laptop to their projector, the hum of the machine a reassuring sound, and began. The presentation outlined Safe Space's journey, from its humble beginnings as a student project to its current status as a vital community resource, highlighting key case studies and illustrating our systemic impact. Eleanor chimed in seamlessly, providing crucial legal context and explaining how our unique model filled critical gaps in existing services, providing help where none existed. 20 minutes into my meticulously rehearsed presentation, just as I was eloquently describing our ambitious vision for expansion, the boardroom door opened with a soft click. A foundation assistant, a young woman with a harried expression, whispered something quickly to Mr. Watkins, who nodded, his brow furrowed in a slight frown. "I apologize for the interruption," Mr. Watkins said, his voice laced with a touch of discomfort, his gaze shifting to me. "Ms. Rojas, there are some people here claiming to be your family. They're quite insistent on speaking with you immediately. My heart stopped, a sudden, cold plunge into a pit of dread. My family. Here. Now. The timing was impossibly excruciatingly bad. They say it's urgent. He added, looking even more uncomfortable, clearly wanting to resolve the awkward situation quickly. What can ask them to wait until we've finished, of course. Eleanor touched my arm supportively, a silent offer of strength. Your call, Jasmine. I took a slow, steadying breath, forcing myself to remain calm. After months of unanswered calls, of relentless messages, my parents had somehow tracked me down to perhaps the most important professional moment of my young career. The timing couldn't have been worse. Or, perhaps, more telling. It was a clear demonstration of their profound lack of boundaries, their complete disregard for my autonomy. Please tell them I'll speak with them after the presentation, I said, my voice remarkably steady, unwavering despite the internal turmoil. This is too important to interrupt. Mr. Watkins nodded approvingly, a flicker of admiration in his eyes, and the assistant quietly left to deliver my message. I turned back to the presentation, but inside, my mind was racing, a tempest of questions and emotions. What could possibly be so urgent after nearly a year of calculated silence? What could justify this blatant invasion of my professional space? I finished the presentation on autopilot, my voice professional, my demeanor composed, despite the roiling emotional turbulence beneath the surface. The board members asked insightful, challenging questions, which I answered thoroughly and confidently, determined not to let my personal drama, however intense, affect this monumental opportunity for safe space. When they finally thanked us, their expressions unreadable, and promised a decision within 2 weeks, I felt strangely hollow rather than hopeful, drained by the sheer effort of maintaining my composure. You were excellent, Jasmine, Eleanor said, her voice filled with genuine admiration as we gathered our materials, the hushed elegance of the boardroom a stark contrast to the chaos brewing within me, especially under the circumstances. Outside the boardroom, in the spacious, brightly lit reception area, my parents and Gabriel waited. My mother, her face a complex mixture of emotions, hope, fear, determination, and a hint of desperation, rose when she saw me, taking a hesitant step forward. My father remained seated, his expression guarded, unreadable, his arms crossed over his chest. Gabriel hovered awkwardly between them, looking everywhere but at me, his discomfort palpable. Jasmine, my mother began, her voice trembling slightly as she took another step forward. We need to talk. Eleanor squeezed my shoulder, a silent gesture of support, then offered me a knowing glance. I'll give you privacy, Jasmine. Call me later. I nodded gratefully, then turned to face my family, the air between us thick with unspoken history. Why are you here? I asked, my voice cool, devoid of emotion, a carefully constructed shield. How did you even find me? We saw the newspaper article about your housing program. My mother explained, her words a rush, as if eager to fill the silence. It mentioned the Watkins presentation today. We've been trying to reach you for months, Jasmine. I'm aware, I said, my voice cutting and precise. 247 calls is hard to miss. My father finally stood, his bulk filling the space, his face set in a familiar mask of patriarchal authority. This has gone on long enough, Jasmine. You're being childish. A bitter, humorless laugh escaped me, a sharp, brittle sound that echoed in the quiet reception area. Childish? I came home to find my belongings in garbage bags. You sold our house without telling me. You abandoned me without a word. And I'm the childish one? We made a mistake, my mother said, her voice a desperate plea, tears welling in her eyes. A terrible mistake. We want to make it right. Now you want to make it right? I asked, a fresh wave of indignation washing over me. After a year. After I've rebuilt my entire life without you. Why now? What changed? Gabriel shifted uncomfortably, finally meeting my gaze, his eyes pleading. Just hear them out, Jess. Please. I know about the inheritance, I said flatly, the words a cold, hard stone dropped into the tense silence. My father's face darkened instantly, a storm gathering in his eyes. Is that why you're suddenly so interested in reconciliation? Because the money finally came through. You've always been so quick to judge, Jasmine. My father growled, his voice low and dangerous. And you've always been so quick to discard. I countered, my voice unwavering, meeting his gaze with a defiant fire of my own. You knew about my grandmother's estate last March. You kept it from me, then you threw me away like trash. You abandoned me knowing I had financial security coming. My mother's eyes widened, a mixture of shock and dawning horror on her face. You know. I know everything, I confirmed, each word a hammer blow. The question is, what do you want now? What do you really want? The foundation's reception area was clearly not the place for this raw, painful family reckoning. We relocated to a nearby coffee shop, its ambient hum of conversations and clinking cups a strange backdrop to our intensely personal drama. I chose a table, placing myself across from them, maintaining a deliberate physical and emotional distance as they attempted to explain the inexplicable, to justify the unforgivable. We were ashamed, Jasmine, my mother admitted, her voice barely a whisper, cradling her untouched coffee cup, its steam rising like a ghostly breath. The foreclosure, your father lost his job, and I couldn't make enough cleaning houses to cover the mortgage. We couldn't tell you. We were too embarrassed. So instead of asking for help, you abandoned me, I stated, my voice low and controlled, each word stripped of emotion, designed to cut through their excuses. We found out about your grandmother's money right after you left for spring semester. My father explained, his voice gruff, avoiding my gaze. The lawyers said you'd inherit when you turned 21. We thought if we moved, started over somewhere new, we could fix our finances before you found out, before it became your problem. Be selling the house and leaving me with nothing. My mother interjected, her voice wavering. We panicked. Jasmine, your father thought you would be better off without our problems. You had your scholarship, your university friends. We thought we were protecting you. And now, I pressed, leaning forward slightly, unwilling to let them off the hook. Why the sudden change of heart? Why now, after all this time and silence? They exchanged glances, a silent, uncomfortable communication passing between them. Gabriel, usually so reserved in their presence, spoke up. They made a terrible mistake. Jazz, he said, his voice earnest. They know that now. They've changed. The safe space thing, my father added gruffly, finally meeting my gaze, a strange mix of pride and regret in his eyes. In the newspaper, we saw what you've accomplished, and we realized we'd lost something precious. Something important. Your successful daughter. I translated bitterly, the words laced with sarcasm. Is that what you mean? You lost your successful daughter? No, my mother insisted, shaking her head, tears finally tracing paths down her cheeks. Our family, Jasmine. Our connection. We miss you. I studied them. These people who had shaped my early life, who had imbued me with values and purpose. And then, so abruptly, shattered it all. My mother looked older, the years and unspoken anxieties etched onto her face, gray strands more prominent in her dark hair. My father, once a towering figure in my childhood, seemed diminished somehow. His shoulders slumped beneath his worn jacket. Gabriel had grown an inch or two, his boyish features maturing, a new seriousness in his gaze. I've built a new life, I said finally, my voice calm but resolute. New connections. People who value me, who support me, regardless of my accomplishments or perceived worth. People who don't abandon me when things get difficult. We're still your family, Jasmine, my father insisted, his voice raw. I met his gaze steadily, my eyes unwavering. Family doesn't put your belongings in garbage bags, I said, the words a quiet statement of fact, not an accusation. Then, Without another word, I rose from the table, placed enough cash to cover all our drinks, a small, symbolic gesture of independence, and prepared to leave. "I don't need closure," I stated, my voice clear and strong. "I've moved forward. But if you truly want to make amends, start by respecting my boundaries." That's the first step. As I walked away from the coffee shop, leaving them sitting there, a silent tableau of regret and confusion, I felt something unexpected. Not the raw, burning satisfaction I might have anticipated. Not vindication, but a quiet, profound strength. I had faced my abandoners on my own terms, armed not with anger, but with truth and self-respect. And I had walked away whole, intact, my spirit unbroken. The very next morning, the Watkins Foundation called. Safe Space Initiative had been awarded the full grant amount, with an additional $50,000 designated for operational expenses, a clear testament to their belief in our mission and my leadership. That same afternoon, a national news outlet contacted me, expressing interest in featuring Safe Space in a segment on innovative approaches to housing justice, a story that would reach millions of viewers. When the story aired 2 weeks later, it truly did reach millions of viewers, including, as I later learned through indirect channels, my parents. They never called again. Sometimes, the family you build yourself, brick by painstaking brick, with threads of shared purpose and genuine care, becomes stronger, more resilient, and infinitely more supportive than the one you were born into. And as I looked toward my future, brimming with new possibilities and profound purpose, I knew, with an unshakable certainty, that I would never again measure my worth through someone else's eyes. My value was inherent, unshakable, and entirely my own.